In our post-free agency mock draft, the Washington Commanders selected safety Caleb Downs, which is a home run for their defense.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I'm Damian Parson. That's Keith Sanchez. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. During the tournament, FanDuel is offering $300 back in bonus bets every day for 10 days. Head to FanDuel.com to get started. On today's episode, we're breaking down the underrated picks, the interesting picks, and our favorite picks from our post-free agency mock draft over at Bleacher Report. Keith, let's get started with the favorite picks. When you looked at this mock, round one, post-free agency, we know what teams have done, how much money has been spent, and how it's going to impact the draft. What was your favorite pick from round one?
I'm going to go with this. The Washington Commanders selecting Caleb Downs and the importance that could be for the Commanders, right? And you know, when we talk about teams and we always talk about quarterbacks, right, being the leaders of the football team. But I think it's very important that you have a defensive leader too, right? Like you have somebody that brings an identity. And I think this Commanders team needs identity. They've spent money in free agency, right? Going after edge rusher. Dafe Owe, right? And I think that brings a presence, right? But I think you need somebody that the fans are going to be extremely excited about. And I think Caleb Downs can be that player, especially on the back end. Like they need a dynamic secondary player that can do a bunch of different things, because the secondary, quite frankly, just has holes right throughout it, right? You're talking about cornerback, talking about safety, nickel, the whole entire thing, I think needs to be revamped. I think we've seen that last year, what it was lacking, right? This team, especially the secondary, and I think drafting Caleb Downs can go a long way.
Yeah, I mean, drafting Caleb Downs, you got Mike Sanders still, Trey Amos now improving the pass rush off the edge should definitely help this defense play at a higher level in 2026. I want to say 2025, in 2026. I'm not trying to go back in time. That was actually a pick when we made it. This was like middle of the week last week when we did this mock. This was one of the picks I've actually voted against this selection. I wanted them to go wide receiver. Like I was like, I want them to get a wide receiver for my guy JD5. Now you got Scary Terry, but what else? You know what I mean? Like you were relying on what Deebo Samuel. I think they drafted the Luke McCaffrey kid, who we still haven't seen him like really take a step, like you know what I mean, for people to think, okay, he's going to be at least a good wide receiver 3. But I agree with you wholeheartedly. Love Caleb Downs, and the defense has to play better. Like that's JD5 got hurt, you know what I mean? And that really derailed a lot offensively last year. But still, the defense, I think, and they were I remember watching one of the games of one of the broadcasts that the Commanders were one of the oldest teams in the league last year in 2025. That's not really a good stat to be the one of the top end, to be one of the oldest teams. So I think that makes a lot of sense to go get Caleb Downs, like I said, pair him with the young talent you have at the cornerback spot. And then allow with Dan Quinn and how he designs defenses, we know that he's going to put those guys in advantageous opportunities to make plays on the football.
Yep.
Keith, man, I'm looking. So of course I was involved with every single one of these picks. So I got outvoted on some, and for me, this guy wouldn't last to 12. But it's David Bailey falling to the Dallas Cowboys.
The Cowboys, I seen that.
The Cowboys getting David Bailey, arguably the most explosive rusher in this class. That first step quickness, the hand usage, speed to power, spin counters. No, I get it, guys. He's not gonna have the same. We got all the sports science folks on Twitter talking about ankle flexion and shin flexibility, and we got all that going. I get it, right? He's not going to pass those exact tests, but I've seen a lot of guys come out of college that can bend at 90 degrees, but they can't threaten through your chest plate. They don't have spin counters. They don't have hand usage. David Bailey has all of that. May not have the exact ideal bend we want a lot of times coming off the edge, but this is a guy that, to me, David Bailey gives you a two-laned rusher, because a lot of those guys that can bend at 90 degrees, Keith, that's all they offer is a 90-degree bend, the outside rush. David Bailey can work through it, offensive tackle's chest. He works inside counters. He works outside. I know it's literally like dealing with a slot receiver because you got to deal with multiple. Like, I got so much space I can work with. I can go inside, outside, or just run straight by you, right? And it's the same thing with the edge rusher. So for me, my favorite pick has to be David Bailey going to the Dallas Cowboys. Them pairing him with Donovan Ezeroku. I think they still have Kenny Clark, who they traded for. If I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
And then you got Quinnen Williams. Like, that front four of being able to, like, on third downs, I love the potential of that. Being able to get after Jalen Hurts, get after JD5, get after Jackson Dart. You need to be able to, as we've seen from the Eagles and from the Seahawks, back-to-back Super Bowl champions, their defense was able to win with 4. That has to be the new model. Like, yes, you can simulate pressures and stuff, but if I got 4 I could get after you with, I'm great. I feel really good about that.
Yeah, it makes the game so much easier and clearer on the back end, right? Being able to drop 7 into coverage. DP, I want to ask you, what was the process, right? David Bailey falling to 12. What was the conversation around? Was it a concern about David Bailey that I guess allowed him to fall to 12, or was it more just the board, I guess, happening that way?
Yeah, I mean, it was a couple picks that I voted against. You know what I mean? And I was outvoted. The numbers
right.
ruled.
It's a democracy, DP.
It's a democracy. You know what I mean? I'm not too fond of the democracy when it's not my way, but nonetheless, no. I think what happened was, like, you look at number 3, the Cardinals didn't go Francis Maui Noah. They went Sonny Styles. I was just like, I mean, I love it. I don't know if linebackers their biggest need, but I'm cool with it, right? Like, I was like, plus, depending on what happens, you got 2 old guys at quarterback. I kind of want to get the offensive tackle to make sure that those 2 old guys don't get hurt. You know what I mean? But Sonny Styles going earlier than expected, because typically Sonny Styles been falling to 5. Then Carnell Tate, who love Carnell, I don't view Carnell as a top 5 player in this. I don't view him as a top 10 player in this class, to be completely honest. I love him as a wide receiver. I don't have him as high, but he went 5th. They wanted to put him to New York. I'm like, all right, cool. Pair him with Malik Neighbors. I think he steps right back into the role he just left as wide receiver too. You know what I mean? Then you get Monroe Freeling jumping up into the top 7, him going to the Browns at 6. I think that's what ended up forcing it to happen, because typically at 7, before free agency, that was the spot for David Bailey a lot of times, was 7 and 4. It was like the Tennessee Titans and the Commanders. Well, Tennessee Titans wouldn't address defense, and looks like they're going Jeremiah Love more than likely. And then the Commanders went and addressed the pass rusher. Was like, we don't need to put another pass rusher there. I still probably would have, because you can never have too many. You know what I mean? So, so I think that's just what it was. It was just a board falling, Ruben Bain going before him, of course, and stuff like that. And how, from a pass rush standpoint, I'd rather have Bailey because I think he's a better pure pass rusher. But for Ruben Bain, for those haven't seen him, Ruben Bain went 9 to Kansas City. Steve Spagnuolo has a type for his defensive line. David Bailey doesn't fit that type. Like, he wants 260, 270, 280. He wants these big boys on the defensive line. You know what I mean? That's just the way I think the smallest guy he might have taken is the guy we saw right before he got drafted was Felix and
Duque. Yeah,
like that was the smallest guy I remember them actually taking off the edge. Everybody else was at least 260, 270. And we saw Felix, right before the draft, and didn't look like he was of that size. It looked like he was going to be playing a different role for them as a more of a speed rusher, finesse rusher.
And it hasn't panned out, right? It hasn't necessarily panned out either in Kansas City.
Not at all. So I think that's kind of what caused David Bailey to slip down the board, Keith. And then I think the other one I would say I love, one of my favorite picks is at 13, the Rams. Now, all the top 3 receivers off the board, guys. Tate went 5 to the Giants. This was before the Dane Brugler tidbit about Jordan Tyson tweaking his hamstring during training, and he may not work out as his pro day, but he went 8 to the Saints, and then Mekhi Lemon went 11 to the Dolphins. 13, you get Francis Maui Noah, the right tackle out of Miami, to play right tackle for the Los Angeles Rams and protect your star quarterback who's a little bit older in the back nine of his career, but still playing high-level football, and he's going to help open up run lanes for you too. So that's one of my favorite picks as well, getting a big road grader like Francis Maui on that Los Angeles Rams offensive line.
Yep. Well, DP, you know how we do. Our everydayers know how we do it over here. When we're breaking down mock drafts, man, we did the favorite picks. Right now, coming up next, we're going to do the most interesting picks, right? Which picks make you turn your head to the side a little bit and say, that's interesting, right? So we're going to go through that coming up next.
Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. The tournament is here. One of the best times of the year. Brackets, buzzer beaters, upsets. It's nonstop action from tip-off to the final cut down. And right now, FanDuel is giving new customers a way to stay in the action all tournament long. Here's the best part. Here's what you get. You get up to $300 back in bonus bets every day for 10 days. That means 10 chances to stay involved throughout the entire tournament. You can mix it up however you want. Game picks, futures, or even same-game parlays for bigger potential payouts. It's perfect for the tournament because every day there's something new, different matchups, new storylines, and more ways to get involved as the bracket unfolds. So visit FanDuel.com to sign up today. That's FanDuel.com to get in on the action. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position you still have to fill is sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for Sponsored Jobs. Indeed, Sponsored Jobs helps you reach the people who actually fit what you're looking for: skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? This is a job for Indeed Sponsored Jobs. Breaking down the most interesting picks from our post-free agency mock draft. That's what we're getting into next. But don't forget to check out the Everyday Club for ad-free episodes and gain access to our group chat in the Discord with me, Keith, the other listeners of the show, and everyone else. Tap the link in the show notes or go to LockedOnNFLDraft.supercast.com to join. Keith, most interesting picks from our post-free agency mock draft over at Bleacher Report. Where do you want to start? What's one of those picks that made you turn your head and be like, that's interesting?
DP, to be honest with you, there's quite a few. There's quite a few in this situation. I want to go to, I'm scrolling through, it's the Cowboys. The Cowboys had pick, was it 20? Pick 20, right? And I believe they selected Jake Goldey. Goldey, the Cincinnati linebacker. I haven't seen him in the first round much. So I would love, and instead of me discussing, I would love you to give me the discussion of taking him at pick 20 and then the conversation of like how much I'm assuming people really like him. And what was the conversation about him? Because we haven't discussed him much on the podcast also. So Jake Goldey going at pick 20.
Yeah, man. I think the conversation with this one was we know that was a sore spot for their defense last year. They traded for Logan Wilson, then they released him after the season for free agency, leaving a hole there. We know that's because when you lose Micah Parsons, you lost two positions. You lost linebacker and edge. You know what I mean? When you lose a guy like him. So thinking about like looking at the linebacker spot and the top two were off the board. It's like, hey, we got David Bailey. Let's add more of a culture changing talent to this defense, and Jake Goldey brings that. I mean, it's we try not to be lazy with the comps, but like when you look at him, the way he plays, the upside he has as well, it reminds a lot of Leighton Vander Esch when he came out.
I thought about that, yeah.
When he came out, just he has a healthy neck. You don't have to worry about like the injuries. He has a healthy neck and everything. But this is a guy that play overhang. He played outside backer. He rushed off the edge, blitzed through the A gap. He did so many different things. And he's a physical dude too. And we know one thing that like there's certain teams we and you have had conversation about like off camera and off air. And I mean, heck, I think we said it on air about like the Cowboys is that certain teams need to be more physical. They lack a physical identity. And I think adding Jake Goldey and then pairing that with a David Bailey, that defensive front seven looks a lot better going into the 2026 training camp than they did in 2025.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, and like I said, I think our listeners will appreciate it because I don't see him I see him sparingly in first rounds, but not a whole lot in first round. DP, I'm gonna throw another name at you. We talk about interesting picks. Another name that has some steam, in my opinion. I like him. I think he's a talented player, but I don't think he's constantly mocked in the first round. And I was pick 23, so a couple picks after the Cowboys pick. Malachi Lawrence, the edge rusher, UCF, going to the Philadelphia Eagles. And you break down the thought process with that one.
Yeah, this rising stock. The fact that Howie Rose, like he knows he has a type, athletic, long arms, tools and traits as a just from when he's scouting it, guys he wants, especially off the edges, right? They had Josh Sweat, they've had Bryce Huff, Nolan from Georgia. Was Nolan Smith, I think.
Nolan Smith, yeah. Yep.
Nolan Smith. Like they've had multiple, they have a type. And Malachi Lawrence is a guy whose stock is just rising like ferociously right now. And to the point where I believe that he actually is going to be a first-round pick and everything. Is there some run defense concerns? Sure. But the ability to get to the quarterback, he absolutely was dominant at the Shrine Bowl and everything. He went to the combine, tore that up, checked in well from height, weight, arm length. For those who care about the RAS score, he had a 9.9 on the RAS. Like he did a lot of things. Talking about having such a big and successful draft cycle, Malachi Lawrence has really helped himself. He's probably one of the biggest stock risers that we've seen in this draft cycle. And I think for the Eagles, knowing that, hey, we need to get better with the pass rush. You lost Josh Sweat. I think they traded with Bryce Huff to San Fran. Like that, the cupboard on the edge rush situation for them is a little bit bare.
Yeah, and I like it from that perspective too. And I also like Malachi Lawrence. Initially when I watched him, I think it was right before the Senior Bowl, and I was like, just kind of rolling through. Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, right? And I was rolling through both rosters, rolling through edge rushers, and I'm like, wait, this UCF young man looks pretty good. And I think what's going on right now, I think he's starting to break through the assumptions, right? And you talk about a small school guy, UCF relative small school, right? But also him going to the Shrine Bowl and not the Senior Bowl, I think still gave people cause for pause for thinking like, okay, well, how good is he, right? In that situation, because obviously we know the unsaid separation between the two. And no knock on the Shrine Bowl because they have players like this, right? But I think he's starting to break through that, especially like what you said with the combine. He's starting to push through, and people saying, wait, like this guy kind of checks all the boxes. Like to me, he's right there with like a Derek Moore for me, the edge rusher from Michigan, just these pure 3-4 outside linebackers that you like. I don't understand why we don't like him, right? Like you're trying to understand the situation. But DP, I got one more name that I want to throw out you from an interesting perspective. And it's relative because I got a lot of flack for this comp. And this is Omar Cooper Jr., the Indiana wide receiver, to the San Francisco 49ers. Discuss that because they've taken a couple wide receivers, right? But I guess still being a need for the 49ers.
Yeah, I definitely saw your tweet about I think you comped him to, you said ceiling was CeeDee Lamb, floor was Rashee Rice, and I saw some interesting comments to it, and I'm like, Twitter's not the place for nuance. It's not Twitter's not the place for nuanced conversations whatsoever. But he feels like a Kyle Shanahan wide receiver. The way he wins in breakers, slants. He's a good athlete, better route runner than most people would assume. You know what I mean? Especially the way that that Indiana offense ran. It was heavy RPO-ish and everything and whatnot. And, some people try to use that as a knock against Mendoza. I say it's more of a, if you want to use it as a knock, I think it's more of a knock against his weapons, because it's like, well, in the offensive line, like, we can't just drop back consistently 40 times a game, straight true drop back, and just expect guys to win quickly. Omar Cooper Jr. was the guy that would win quickly. Charlie Becker took the top off as the big explosive threat, and then the possession guy was Elijah Surratt, right? So Omar Cooper Jr. and his ability to make plays after the catch, route running, then it's the ball skills and body control. Like, I'm like, yeah, this is one of those guys. He gets drafted to this spot. I think he might be in the running for like offensive rookie of the year. Like, because I feel like that, because especially if Ricky Pearsall stays healthy, Pearsall's going to get the bulk of the wide receiver touches. But like, if he's still battling injuries as he has since he's gotten drafted, I could see Omar Cooper Jr. becoming a favorite of Kyle Shanahan.
Yeah, and I think the 49ers have showed that they're willing to take swings on guys that were late risers. I think just with the conversation of Ricky Pearsall, right? Like, I think it was at the very end that, even because this was time he was at the Draft Network, and we was like, wait, Ricky might be a first rounder, right? Like, we need to kind of watch out for this because this young man is talented. Omar Cooper Jr., and just for the people that's not on Twitter, right? I'm talk about it. I gave him the ceiling of CeeDee Lamb and the floor of Rashee Rice, and I think he falls somewhere in there. And you're right? Twitter isn't a place for nuance. So I'll discuss the nuance part and why I agree with you that the 49ers could be a good spot. When I was watching him, right, and finishing up everything in Omar Cooper, he's a slot guy. Like, he operates well out of the slot, just like Rashee Rice, just like CeeDee Lamb does, right? And I was thinking, I'm like, okay, CeeDee Lamb is the all-pro version of that, right? And then Rashee Rice is the good wide receiver, right? Like that's and I think Omar can fall somewhere in between that to where it's like, okay, he can be a Rashee Rice to where he could probably get you 700-800 yards, right? If he's your best wide receiver, maybe your wide receiver core isn't great, but if he's a number 2 or number 3 for you, then you feel really good about it. So that's why I discussed it. Like, even to me, I thought that I'm trying to think of the proper way to say this, like his run pattern, his stride length, it looked like CeeDee Lamb. Like they have very similar, really, like the knee, like how they pick their knees up. It's not a high knee drive, and just how they go about it. And I watched CeeDee Lamb when I was at LSU when we played Oklahoma, right? And it's a deceptive, because I'll be honest with you, I didn't think Omar Cooper was going to be a 4-4 guy. I thought he was more of a 4-5 guy, which I believe CeeDee Lamb ran a 4-5. And Rashee Rice, I forgot what Rashee Rice ran, but it's a deceptive speed and sneakiness to it that you like, you know what, when you go back to the film and you go back to the numbers, you just kind of had to say, you know what, I respect it, right? You get the job done and you can't fight it. So, just, providing a little nuance to that. But DP, that was a good segment, man. I enjoyed asking you about some of these picks that y'all made and kind of giving, flushing out the details of it. But DP, you know what we did, man. We rolled through the favorite picks. We rolled through interesting picks. Now it's time to talk about the underrated picks. And I already know I'm going somewhere in the top 10. We're going to have that discussion coming up next.
Welcome to the 5-hour energy flavor draft with 18 different flavors to choose from, including new options like Confetti Craze, Fruity Rainbow, or Cotton Candy. There's something for everyone. Well, the board is set, the flavors are ready, and I've got my number 1 pick up for the 5-hour energy flavor draft. And I got to go with a new number 1 pick, Big Bold Berry flavor. Berry gives you that slightly sweet and very fruity flavor, classic mixed berry flavor with notes of raspberry and blackberry, that smooth sweetness without being overly sugary, that light tartness that keeps it balanced and familiar. Easy to recognize fruit profile. Clean finish with minimal aftertaste and the most traditional go-to flavor in the entire lineup. And guys, 5-hour energy shots give you a boost with 0 sugar. So find your new favorite flavor of 5-hour energy shots available online at 5hourenergy.com or Amazon. Thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen of the day. And thank you for making the Locked On Podcast Network the number 1 sports podcast network in America. It's all because of you. The underrated picks, Keith. I want to start, and I think we did this in our mock last week. pick 26, Caden McDonnell going to the Buffalo Bills. And that's a pick where Bills Mafia, I'm telling you, if this is the pick for you next month, a month from now, clap, cheer, be happy, because this is a dude. Like, I don't think there's a better run defender at the defensive tackle spot than Caden McDonnell. Like, this dude commands double teams, everything.
Yeah, and we discussed it, DP. When we put out our final big board, if we go through a conversation of like our ranking separately, right? Don't be surprised if he's deep into my top 10, meaning he might be close to the top 5. Like I think this young man might be severely underrated because of the position he plays. His defensive tackle, right? It's not a sexy position. It's a respected position, not a sexy position. But when I watch some of his dominance, I'm like, this young man plays football at a very high level.
No, 100%. I think he gives you a little bit of upside as a pass rusher too, being able to surge through. He keeps his pad level low. It's not like, it's different. Like, you watch him and you watch like a Caleb Banks, and you see the pad level issues with a Caleb Banks, where you see this guy stays low, drives through, completes the drive phase, gets his hands fitted, and he's so powerful, so strong, and able to just dictate the balance and movement of offensive linemen. And then again, he's going to command double team. So then again, if you're going to run that 3-4, that out front, he's at your nose. You put Oliver at one of the DN spots, and then Deion Walker at one of the DN spots. Now you allow those guys to run fit in one-on-one situations. You got your edge rushers, you got your linebackers. You can flow to the ball a lot better, and he's going to keep whoever's at linebacker clean because of the fact that he's going to eat up space. So that was one of my favorite picks. I know, like, we talked about it when we did our own mock last week, midweek last week, but I had to come back to because I'm just like, this makes a lot of sense. And I don't think this isn't a Jordan Davis. Oh, he's only a 2-down guy. We don't know how many snaps he's going to play. I think you can play him in a decent amount of snaps because he didn't cut. It's not like Ohio State had to take him off the field. Like, this dude impacts the game on all three downs.
Yep, I agree. DP, I told you I was going to go somewhere inside the top 10 for underrated pick. I'm going with pick 6. Cleveland Browns selecting offensive tackle Monroe Freeling. The more I watch this young man, the more I appreciate his game. And we know the conversation and discussion is going to be the limited snaps, right? He hasn't played 2-3 years as a starter, things like that. But I think he is what you're looking for in a left tackle. And then I think about the Cleveland Browns, right? Make sure I got his name right, Joe Thomas, right? That they had for many, many years, left tackle, Pro Bowler, All-Pro, Hall of Fame, right? Like, that's the trajectory. Did they find their next Joe Thomas? And not, I hate to put that much kind of expectation on him. I don't think they play similar. Like, they have different play styles. Joe Thomas, very unique in his play style and how is he effective. But just saying, like, having a left tackle for the next decade, we know how important that is, right? And especially with them trying to figure out the quarterback situation. I think solidifying the left tackle for the next decade is a stepping stone to being able to find a quarterback for the next decade, meaning that if it's going to be Shedeur Sanders, they still have Deshaun Watson in the fold, Dylan Gabriel, I believe they still have on the roster, right? So just trying to figure that part out. And even if they go into next year's draft, talking about 2027, needing a young guy, knowing that you have a left tackle, I think so. I think that's a severely underrated pick. Like, it'll go down and be like, okay, Browns took off as a tackle, but having a high level, high impact potential Pro Bowl as left tackle is very important.
Yeah, no, and I think especially because right now they're just left tackle or bust heading into the draft. They've addressed their entire offensive line, getting Titus Howard to play right tackle.
Guards,
they got Zion Johnson from the Chargers, who Chargers fans didn't like him, right? Well, maybe he fits what Tom Monken's going to do offensively, and it might just not have been a fit for you guys, right? Especially, I think, because Greg Roman's been more of a power runner, Jim Harbaugh more of a power runner. He was always more, to me, of a pure zone guard.
He was a good athlete.
Good athlete. You wonder about the point of attack strength with Zion, because he's a little bit undersized as well, but the movement skills are there, things like that. They brought in Elton Jenkins to also play. I think he's playing center. They got Tevin Jenkins that might end up starting at right guard, who has looked good lately. They just need a left tackle. That's the big thing. I mean, they got DeJuan Jones coming back from injury, but it's like he just hasn't stayed healthy.
He played right also.
He played right as well.
Right
so
tackle,
they put themselves in a spot where if you draft Monroe at 6, let's say DeJuan Jones flips back to right, and then you put Titus Howard at right guard. You got Freeling, Zion Johnson, Elton Jenkins, Titus Howard at guard, and then DeJuan Jones. You have flexibility and guys who can play multiple positions, and that sets you up. Because like you said, if you don't have the quarterback in your future on the roster right now, cool. What do we always say, Keith? Build your roster for the quarterback. It's a lot easier to be successful if you have a good roster for the quarterback, right? Like, it just makes a lot of sense, Keith. My last one that I'll say that is an underrated pick, I go to 16. The New York Jets with the pick from the Colts, replacing Sauce Gardner, getting Jermod McCoy, and pairing him to learn from Aaron Glenn on that Jets defense. I think that makes a ton of sense for the Jets. I think for them, it's just getting BPA, not necessarily having to take any specific positions. So Jets walk out of, and again, the Jets have the second pick, the 16th pick, the 33rd pick, the 44th pick, and pick 103. They got a lot of draft capital just in this class. And the next year, they got 3 first rounders. So you get Arvell Reese at pick 2, and now you get Jermod McCoy to help revamp this defense. Cost-efficient contracts, right? You traded off Jermaine Johnson to the Titans. You get Arvell Reese. You traded off Sauce Gardner. You get Jermod McCoy. I really like that. I believe that McCoy gives you both zone and, as we talked about last week when we did his I think it was last week when we did his profile. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. That man and zone capability, and then pairing him with the Aaron Glenn. I don't think there's not many other coaches that's going to be better at teaching you how to play the position than the guy who actually played at a high level like Aaron Glenn.
Yeah, no, and listen, I think that's a pick when you're talking about Jermod McCoy or a cornerback period for the New York Jets. And I think if Aaron Glenn can have his say, it will happen, right? Taking a corner, especially them. Were they the first team in NFL history not to have an interception the entire? So my guy, Aaron Glenn, being a former NFL defensive back, being a former defensive coordinator, can't have that again, right? Like he has to figure that part out. And he's fighting for his head coaching life in New York right now. So I think if he has a selection, he would take a defensive back. But DP, that wraps up another episode, man, of the Locked On NFL Draft Podcast. I want to end this podcast all by saying shout out to our everydayers. Thank you for tapping in with us each and every single day. I am Keith Sanchez. You can find me on X at The Talent Code. That right there is my guy, my co-host, Mr. Damian Parson. You can find him on X at DP_NFL. And like we like to say, man, y'all come talk to us because we like to talk back.
Go subscribe and follow for free on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts to get the latest episode as soon as it is available. I know we were supposed to do top 10 tight ends on Monday, but I changed the script a little bit. Let's do a mock draft. Flip the script. We're bringing back mock draft Monday up until the draft, but we're going to do our top 10 tight end rankings and tell you why this is actually might be a better tight end class than people gave it credit for. We'll talk about that on tomorrow's show. So come and join the conversation again tomorrow on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.